Hola mis compañeros, ¿cómo estamos? Estamos en Confianza. My name is Norberto Briseño and I'm the Director of Social Media for Voto Latino. We register Latinos to vote, we're getting the word out about COVID-19 vaccines, and we're making sure our Black and Brown communities are involved in civic engagement. En Confianza is a show produced by La Red Hispana and the HHS campaign, hashtag Juntos y Podemos, hashtag We Can Do This. Today, our topic of conversation is, we're going to talk about how to talk to the youth about COVID-19 vaccines. Cómo educar a nuestros jóvenes acerca de las vacunas del COVID. Today, we have with us la doctora Katia Corrado from the Lundquist Institute by NIH-CO. Doctora, ¿cómo estamos?
Hola Norberto, estamos aquí bien felices de estar juntos.
No, pues bien, qué bien, qué bien. Un poquito calorcito, pero aquí estamos. Grace Martinez Rosas, Executive Director of United We Dream, and thank you, United We Dream, for hosting us for this IG Live. Grace, how you doing?
What's good, Norberto? I'm good. I'm like relaxing here. It's 7 p.m. in DC, and I'm ready to talk about vacunas.
We're ready to talk about vacunas. I'm telling you, it's warm, it's hot, but you know what? We're gonna make this happen.
That's right.
Gracie Hernandez, mental health writer, COO of Gen Z Girl Gang. Girl, how are you?
I'm doing great and excited to talk about all the things vaccines.
That's dope. Yeah, so, you know, one of the things is, y'all, just to remind y'all, so we want to remind you that if you have any questions whatsoever for this lovely panel, be sure to put them in the comments. Si tiene preguntas acerca de las vacunas del COVID, por favor, dejen su pregunta en los comentarios. So, Doctora Corrado, please, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what do you do, and talk to us about the organization that you work for.
Claro que sí. Entonces, Norberto, yo soy una doctora que soy especialista de infecciones. Entonces, yo veo a pacientes en el hospital, en las clínicas que han tenido una infección para tratar. Y obviamente la pandemia del COVID me ha puesto en una posición bien especial para tentar no solo trabajar con la comunidad para que todo el mundo estemos seguros, pero también para trabajar con diferentes institutos para poder hacer los estudios clínicos, los que han resultado en las vacunas y estamos estudiando los tratamientos. Entonces, yo trabajo en lo que se dice en un safety net hospital, que es como un hospital del condado, donde nosotros vemos pacientes que no necesariamente tienen aseguranza y no necesariamente tienen documentos para estar en este país. Y en eso nosotros nos especializamos. Eso es un poquito de lo que yo hago. Y conforme yo soy alguien que usualmente trabajo con adultos, entonces no estoy tan conectada con la juventud, pero donde estoy conectada es cuando los adultos traen a sus hijos para ayudarles manejar sus problemas médicos, que ustedes saben, igualito que a mí me pasó, nuestros papás cuando no hablan el inglés, cuando tenían un poquito de miedo ir al doctor solitos, nos usan a nosotros para ir a interpretar, a poder comunicarnos con un sistema que no conocen. Entonces, muchas veces yo estoy en comunicación con la gente joven en ese tipo de circunstancia.
Qué bien, qué bien. Yo creo que es importante el trabajo que usted hace para la comunidad latina. Es sumamente importante y gracias por la representación. Se lo agradecemos. Grace, I want to talk to you a little bit. You work with the immigrant community. You've been doing a lot. You've been doing this for a while now. So I want to, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us a little bit about United We Dream. And more specifically, how did the pandemic come and affect the work that you do? Oh, are we on mute? Are we on mute?
Yo, I made that Zoom thing. I know everyone can relate to this moment that I'm just sharing. So I just want to say a big shout out to all of the UWD fam watching us on Insta Live. So happy to be in the space, to welcome Norberto, Katia, and Gracie to the space, and to be super honest with each other that the pandemic has had very racialized impact on undocumented people, on Black and Brown people. And it's not been a mistake or someone forgot about it. It is a systemic racism showing up in our lives each and every single day. So for me, I care about this because I am undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed. And I get the honor to lead United We Dream Network and United We Dream Action. And we are the largest network of undocumented immigrant youth with more than 1.2 million members across the country. And with a really clear analysis that in this moment, what we were seeing, Norberto and Gracie and Dr. Katia, you might have seen this too. Like our families had to bear the brunt of this pandemic on whether it was in our schoolwork, whether it was in taking on multiple jobs, and that in the same time that our labor, that our lives were deemed essential for this country to survive, our lives and our well-being was deemed something that could be thrown away. That was a big representation when we saw that Congress like explicitly excluded undocumented people from any COVID relief package that has passed the Senate and the House of Representatives of this country. And which is why it's so important for all of us to be really clear. There is a vaccine out there, the COVID-19 vaccine, that allows me and my family to feel a little bit safer as we go out here in these streets. And it's up to all of us to ensure that our families are safe so that we can have one more day to continue to fight for the rights of Black and Brown people in this country, and we can win citizenship, we can win healthcare access for everybody that deserves it, we can win living wages for all, but we gotta be alive to do that, and part of that is getting the vaccine.
Absolutely, that is 100% the truth, and I think one of the things is that as we're seeing this pandemic, we had to adapt super quickly. We all work in these organizations, and honestly, any plans that you had pre-pandemic, suddenly like you got to toss them out and adapt to what was going on, and the realities of our communities and how they were immediately impacted by this terrible pandemic. Gracie, I want to talk to you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and yeah, how did COVID come to affect the work that you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I focus primarily on the mental health impact that the whole pandemic had on us, specifically youth and college students, and how this literally turned our world upside down. But it, like we know, has much more impact on people who are already disadvantaged. So people who don't have access to mental health resources in the first place, people who have really hard time affording or finding a therapist who understands their cultural background. So that's why I dedicated my page with Las Chicas Chulas and sharing resources around how to actually find those, whether it be coping skills or meditations or journaling. I lead sessions within those workshops. And also within Gen Z Girl Gang, we share weekly opportunities for any students or people who are already in the workforce to find internships or to find some jobs or anything, because as we know, a lot of people were not able to keep what they had previously. So we're just like trying to have opportunities there as well.
Yeah, that's something that's incredibly important for our communities. I think oftentimes we talk about the practical. Siempre estamos hablando acerca de lo que es lo práctico. Tenemos que ir a agarrar las vacunas y todo esto, pero al mismo tiempo lo que no hablamos es de la salud mental de todo esto, the mental health aspect of this, that we often tend to be like, you know what, así como Latinos, we're just leave it be. It'll be the last, we'll eventually get to it, but we never actually do. So I think I want to know, Doctora Katia, si puedes decirme, where are we right now? I think right now the general feeling, and if y'all can jump in, the general feeling that I'm feeling is that everybody's like, pues ya se terminó todo, ¿no? Pues ya, we're done with las vacunas, like everybody's vaccinated, you don't need to have a mask. Is that the truth? That are we out of this?
Entonces, Norberto, como todo el mundo sabe, tuvimos un horrible diciembre, enero, febrero de este año que pasó. Los hospitales estaban rellenos de personas que estaban muriendo de COVID, muchas de ellas personas de nuestra comunidad. Bueno, la mayoría de ellas personas de nuestra comunidad. Y entonces, cuando ya comenzó las vacunas, que comenzaron para personas como yo, doctoros, personas que trabajan en hospitales en diciembre, y ahora que todo el mundo tiene acceso a las vacunas, muchas personas sí han agarrado las vacunas. Y lo que sabemos de las vacunas es que si uno recibe la vacuna, la serie completa, uno tiene una muy alto nivel de protección. ¿Pero de protección de qué? Es protección de no ser hospitalizado y protección de no tener consecuencias malas si se llegan a infectar del COVID-19. Las vacunas no significan que usted nunca se va a infectar del COVID-19, solo le va a proteger si llega a infectarse. Pero lo que sabemos es cuando uno mira los Estados Unidos, incluso cuando uno mira las diferentes ciudades donde estamos, hay diferentes niveles de personas que han recibido la vacuna. Entonces, si yo entro, por decir, si yo entro a un cuarto y hay 100 personas y las 100 personas están vacunadas, yo sé que ese cuarto puedo estar bien, no tengo que usar mi máscara porque todo el mundo estamos protegidos y no vamos a contagiarnos uno a otro del COVID-19. Pero si yo entro a un cuarto y solo 70 de los 100 o 30 de los 100 están vacunados, todavía los riesgos son bien altos. Entonces, lo que estamos viendo en este momento, después de meses de tener los números de los casos que han bajado, ahorita muchos estados, incluyendo el California, donde estoy yo, los casos están subiendo otra vez. ¿Y en quién están subiendo? Están subiendo en la gente joven y la gente que no está vacunada. Entonces, todavía no estamos al otro lado de la pandemia, por decir, todavía estamos muy preocupados, especialmente por la gente vulnerable. Nuestra comunidad, Norberto, es vulnerable. Nosotros nos morimos en un nivel más alto de otras poblaciones. Nosotros nos hospitalizamos a un nivel más alto. Entonces, en este momento, la frustración en alguien como yo, que veo pacientes en el hospital, que he llamado a familia en español para decirle que su papá o el abuelito no va a salir del hospital, es que eso no es necesario. Si uno se vacuna, si uno llega a tener esa protección, debemos actuar y debemos hacerlo, porque como ustedes saben, muchos de nosotros no podemos quedarnos en nuestra casa, muchos de nosotros tenemos que salir a trabajar, tenemos una casa llena de los abuelitos, de los papás, de los tíos, y nuestra casa es bien vulnerable.
Sí, así es. Yo creo que la realidad de la situación es de que el problema de los jóvenes es de que no nada más tenemos la responsabilidad de vacunarnos a nosotros, tenemos también la responsabilidad de educar a nuestros padres, a la abuela, a los tíos, a los parientes, ¿no? And I think that's something that's an added burden to everything else that we got to deal with during this pandemic. You know, as Black and brown people, like we got to be able to. There's a lot there that we need to be able to do for our elders, no? So I think that's something that I've noticed that when it comes to our families, when it comes to trying to get them to go and get the vaccine, it's a hustle. It's already terribly. It's already a hard thing to do, and then on top of that, there's so many barriers, administrative barriers, that get in the way of giving them this information. So, Gresa, I want to talk to you. I come from a mixed household, and I think that's something that a lot of people had to deal with. You know, even with my parents and their situation. You know, they come from they're Mexican, and so they come from a background of not wanting to trust the government. When it says they get a free vaccine, they're like, no, drink some Sprite and some Vaporu and you're good. So I want to know, like, what's been up with in terms of getting the information out to the immigrant communities. What have you seen is the most effective way that we can get this messaging across?
In my household, we do the Vaporu, the Sprite, and the Sana Colita de Rana as like the holy trinity of getting better.
Health insurance. That's our health insurance.
Yeah. You know, I guess one thing I'll ground this conversation with that always helps me is that the distrust that our families feel of the government is warranted. And I think that it's important as we talk to our families and our loved ones that we actually just came out of 4 years of a white nationalist at the White House that was responsible for the forced sterilization of undocumented women in detention centers, that was responsible for the deaths and detention of millions of people. And so when you're in the midst of this moment, when you're like recovering to Gracie's work and the work that we do at United We Dream of DocuHealth, it's important for us to realize that there's like, all of us have a flow and an ebb about how our mental health sort of copes with the moments that we're in. Some of us, we're all in the same choppy waters, but we're not all in the same boat. Like, I can note that where I have the privilege to be able to have a job that allowed me to stay at home, and that there are different cultural things that protect us. But the reality is that the best doctors, the best people that have our interests at heart are also telling us that if we want a fighting chance to be able to survive, the best bet to do that is by getting the help that we need. The best bet to do that is to ensuring that we are not only stopping there, but becoming involved, because the reality of the day is that a vaccine is going to be important, but in this moment, we're talking about Congress making a decision about whether or not undocumented people will receive citizenship as part of the recovery package when it comes to COVID-19. And we know that our fights don't end with just citizenship. I think, Norberto, you would be able to say that just by being a citizen doesn't mean that all the problems of a brown man in the US go away, right? It's like,
absolutely not. No, I got tons of problems. Let me tell you about it.
But also a lot of opportunities, and this work and this world is better because you're in it and because you show up every single day. And that's the same thing for everyone watching us tonight. And that's the call that we're saying. So when I went back to Texas, I was telling y'all before we started, I went back to Texas to a quinceañera. I was talking to people. I was all excited about my vaccine, telling them how it was, that it didn't really hurt that much, that, it got me an excuse to go and get a paleta afterwards to treat myself because I thought it was going to hurt. And some people had some real questions, and like we sat down with a lot of humility and like not feeling like I had all the answers, and pointing people to some resources that I found helpful, and knowing that like it is our responsibility to show up for our family members and the people that we love with a lot of grace, but a lot of also clarity and certainty that this is the best thing that we have right now, that we want the best thing for them, and that we need them to be part of our community and we need them to feel safe. And finally, I'll say that the work that we do at United We Dream spans, whether it's fighting for citizenship, from protecting DACA, from ensuring that we're abolishing ICE and CBP and the agents that hurt us. But at the end of the day, it's about this celebration of a joyful rebellion. Como que te dijeron que no podías, pero sí le sacaste ganas y sí pudiste. And so for us, we have this poem that really grounds us in our work, and it's by the wonderful Lucille Clifton, this Black woman poet, that says, "Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into this kind of life? I had no model. I was born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding my other hand tight. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed." And in this moment, whether it's the state, whether it's this coronavirus, whether it is all these other pieces, there are many things that have tried to kill us and that are posing threats to us, but we are here. We're showing up. We're like, we are resilient people, and we got each other's back. So I think that part of the idea for today and for all the four of us being on the discussion is to be able to tell the people that are watching us, you're not alone. The questions that you have are valid. There are many resources that are around you, and United We Dream and the folks on this call, we got your back. You're not alone. You don't have to navigate it.
I think you bring up a good point, right? And it's about like injecting the joy into the work that we're all doing, right? And I think that's part of the messaging usually that requires us to talk about COVID vaccines. You can't just talk about the medical stuff. It goes in one ear, it goes out the other. It's imperative to try and always combine it with joyful things. And I think that's part of the reason why at Voto Latino, we try and do that. We try and like incorporate not only politics, but also everything else that's going on with COVID, everything that's going on with our community, and make it palatable. And try to consistently amplify joyful things that people can share. Because at the end of the day, all this bad news that we're all going through is just like, yo, man, te deprime. Like it's very depressing when you see our communities consistently at the butt of bad news. And I think that's something that to all of us, we're all working right now to try and make sure that our communities get the best care that they possibly can. And it's something that has been it's been a struggle, right? But we do it. We try to do the work. So Gracie, I want to know, like, again, the mental health perspective, I think, is something that's very important. And I don't think anybody really realizes, at least not in my family or in the families that I know, that, the mental health element of all of this is super important. And yet we consistently keep putting our feelings, you know what, we're going to put it in a box and we're going to put it up in the attic, and then I'll get to it whenever I get to it. And I think that's been something that's been hard to digest for a lot of people. So talk to me a little bit about that, about how you see the community and how you see the community doing on an emotional level, and how do we move forward in terms of caring for our mental health, especially during this pandemic and in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that. I think it's a shared commonality. Like, we all feel like everything, like there's a lot of pressure coming up from here, like everywhere, like seems to be like pressuring us into like this little space that we feel like we're almost suffocating. And when that's the case, it's really hard to ignore the problems and say like, oh, let me just fix like this finance area and then I'll be great, because there's other things that that you need to acknowledge. And I think when that happens, something that has been really helpful is just to understand like that concept around like you're not alone. It's nice to think about, but in practice, like you really are not, like you're not the first person to feel this, and you're not the last person to feel this. And I love that idea about like we do have each other's back. We are here for each other, in the sense of knowing that like I've seen a lot of mutual aid going around. I've seen a lot of people opening up, and that's beautiful because we do have strength in our community. And those are the things that we can focus on and start to amplify a bit more. I feel like it's really hard to stay informed and also not be like drowning in the sea of bad news. But when it comes to that, like balancing the two, like how do I know that, like stay informed? I personally started limiting like my time on the news and like intaking a lot of things that were going in. And it's just really like understanding, like listening to your own body, because to your nervous system, whenever you are feeling nervous, if you are going to get the vaccine and you are like really hesitant around it, like it's okay to have these like to be tense around it, or to have like any nervous thoughts. And that's why there's resources around. I'm pretty sure we're going to get into this in the next part. But that's why the resources are so important to talk about, and specifically around knowing like even if you've already had COVID, the antibodies, we don't know how long they're going to stay in your body. That's why it's important for us to get the vaccines. And it's also like I've just seen how much peace of mind people might have to start, like it's almost like a sense of relief. Like I know in my household, my mom started telling me like, oh, like now I'm not as worried about like potentially not going to work, because now I feel like I have this here. So it's definitely something that's really important to start the conversation in our families, even though it can get a little hard because of that like translation stuff.
Yeah, that's I think to add to it, I think you brought up a good point of acknowledging how we feel. And part of it has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people in our family have, let's just be real, it's fear. We fear the unknown. And especially when it comes to a lot of these vaccines, there's a lot of information that we don't know. And instead of going out of our way to try and research and to see what the information's about, we instead are very much like, you know what, we're going to put it aside. We're just not going to do it. So, Doctora Katia, I want to know a little bit more about, how, in dealing with the older folks, right, and the role that young people play in terms of informing them. What would you say is something that has been very beneficial in that connection of young people doing the best to try and educate their older folks? What have you seen has worked?
Voy a responder español para las personas que nos quieren comunicar esto con sus papás, ¿verdad? Entonces, lo que sabemos, nuestra cultura, sabemos que recibimos mucha información que no está correcta en muchas formas, ¿no? En el social media. Por ejemplo, unas cosas que siempre escucho de los pacientes latinos es, oh, doctora, tal artista de México puso en su Instagram que las vacunas causan bla, 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 ¿no? Y por eso no quiero la vacuna. Y entonces uno comienza a hablar, bueno, como una persona que sabe un poquito más navegar el Internet, podemos guiar a nuestros papás. ¿Sabes qué? De repente esa persona no es la más indicada a darnos consejos. Podemos ir al CDC, que hay muchas cosas que uno puede ver en español. Podemos ir a hacer cita con su doctor. Podemos ir a hablar con alguien en su comunidad que le tiene confianza y que sabemos que va a dar como el recado apropiado. Entonces yo pienso que a veces nuestros papás, y mis papás también, ¿verdad? Oh, la vecina dijo tal cosa, la fulanita dijo tal cosa, tu tía lo agarró y bla, bla, bla. Y uno dice, ok, esta es experiencia de esas personas, pero eso no significa que tenemos que decir, si la vecina dijo tal cosa, eso es lo que es real. Entonces, guiando a nuestros papás a lugares donde que tenemos confianza es muy importante para su generación.
Sí, yo creo que, doctora Katy, algo que dijo es de que, hijo, me recuerda de que mi mamá el otro día me estaba diciendo de que, oye, Nico, quiero ver algo, espera. Y luego agarró su teléfono y me lo puso aquí, ¿no? Y mira, a ver, se te pega el teléfono y dije, pues, como que, ¿de dónde sacas esta información? Y me dijo, pues es que un programa estaba haciendo una broma, pero dicen que si te pones la vacuna, o sea, que se te pega el teléfono. Hijo, y es algo que tenemos que tener cuidado de que la información que consumen nuestros padres. Y es algo que, o sea, ellos consumen mucho. Ellos consumen del radio, de la televisión, consumen de los memes que pasan las tías y los sobrinos en el WhatsApp. Está por todas partes. Y yo creo que tenemos nosotros como jóvenes tenemos la responsabilidad de lo que están consumiendo. Y yo creo que es algo que es sumamente importante porque realmente lo que para nosotros tenemos la ventaja de que tenemos toda la información ya a nuestras manos, ¿no? Estamos informados, trabajamos en organizaciones que tienen esta información, pero la mayoría de nuestros padres, la mayoría de nuestros tíos, los tías, los abuelos, los padrinos, no tienen esa información, no están tan activos como nosotros. Y es por eso que es sumamente importante tener esa relación con ellos y saber qué están consumiendo, cuál es la información que están consumiendo, porque la mayoría de esa información es muy falsa o exagerada y es importante hablar acerca de eso. Y la cosa es de que para serte realista, yo siempre pensé que mis padres sabían todo, ¿no? De que tienen esas fuentes de información que sí, están al tanto, ¿no? Sí, mis papás están al tanto. Los papás de fulano de tal, que siempre están hablando acerca de la desinformación, ellos no son mis papás. Pero luego te pones a averiguar que sí, pues tienes tu familia, son familia, ¿no? y sí no saben tanto. Ellos yo creo que están consumiendo la misma información de funado de tal. Yo creo que sí, es por eso que es importante pelar ojo y saber de dónde están sacando esta información. Entonces, Grace, una pregunta rápido, porque se nos está acabando el tiempo. Yo creo que quiero saber, o sea, cuando vienen acerca de las comunidades, ¿cuáles son las fuentes de desinformación que has visto en la comunidad inmigrante?
The disinformation?
Desinformación.
Oh, okay. So I mean, I think that disinformation is this new thing that everybody's talking about, and it's really not new. There's this idea that people that don't have our best interests at heart flood our Facebook lives, our TVs, our radio stations, telling us the wrong date for something or like telling us lies about whatever's happening around us. And so I think that what is and the reality is that those people are backed by billions of dollars that are really clear that like they don't want Black and brown people. And Alberto, you're like the perfect audience that they're looking for. They're looking for like brown guys like in the Gen Z. I had to take out my earrings because I got so mad about it. And I think that like I'll say that there's a lot of sources of dis and misinformation, but the most important thing to know is that United We Dream is an avenue for where you have a question. We do our triple, quadruple check before we send out information. I know that the organizations that we represent here are also folks that you can trust. And I think that it's going to be important for you, for all of us, to take responsibility to, as Gracie was saying, to be super honest with ourselves about what we can and cannot control. We can offer advice. We can make sure that we're getting the folks around us the information that they need, that we're providing, that you'll get resources for, and that there is a responsibility that we hold as daughters and children of undocumented people, of immigrants in the U.S. There's a responsibility that we hold as being sometimes like the first person to graduate from college or to graduate from high school in our families. And sometimes that can be overbearing. So I so forth release myself and release you from the responsibility of having to protect the whole world around you. And I call on you and call on myself to say that you are exactly enough, that there are a lot of people around you, including United We Dream, that are going to have your back and give you the information that you need, that there is dis and misinformation. So if you don't feel something, you usually feel it in your gut and in your stomach, where I'm not sure that lands right, that if I put the phone by me, it's going to hang on to me. That doesn't really sound good. So trust your gut, go and Google it, ask someone that you trust. But ultimately, to Gracie's point, wellness and our mental health are the thing. Like, someone who wants to destroy us wants to rob our joy. They want to take away our ability to self-determine. And the most beautiful thing about Latinos, the most beautiful thing about immigrants is that we are courageous, that we are undeniable, that we cross borders, we cross deserts, we cross rivers, and we made it here. And so I think that the biggest thing for you to know is that you're not alone, that you have exactly what you need, that you are brave enough to be able to navigate all these systems, and that there's people that are going to watch your back. So if I would take a little bit of privilege to plug that UWD has UndocuHealth, which is a site with a lot of resources for undocumented folks, and a partnership with the National Latino Psychological Association. And if you want more information about how to breathe like a baby, how to do some centering as you go into the spaces, you can text wellness to 877-877, wellness to 877-877, just so that you have it.
And yeah, so real quick, we got some questions from our people in the audience. And one of the questions is, and I'll throw it around to y'all, why are they pushing the vaccine so hard, like giving you money or incentives? So I'm gonna kind of leave it do an open forum and put that question out there. Why do you think that they're pushing these vaccines so hard? Doctora, if you want to start.
Sure. So I'll answer in English because the question came in English. So it feels like we're pushing the vaccines very hard because we are pushing the vaccines very hard. And the reason, the medical reason, the scientific reason behind that is because we know, because the studies have shown us, that it gives us protection. That if we have a whole group of people that's vaccinated, that group of people will be fine for the most part. And so in order to get what's called herd immunity, right, in order to get that 75–80% of people to get vaccinated so that the virus doesn't infiltrate that community and cause damage in that community, the incentives come in. If you notice, incentives didn't come in at the beginning, right? So they've just come in the last month and a half. And so those of us who wanted to get vaccinated are called the early adopters. So we go and we seek the treatment, we seek the vaccine, and then we have to talk to the people who are going to be a little bit more nervous about getting the vaccine. And then we talk to the people who maybe don't understand why it's necessary or not. And then we talk to the people who don't want to go unless there's an incentive. So there's various ways of getting or energizing someone to come get the vaccine. The incentives are just one way. It's not necessary, it's not needed. For many people, it's very helpful, right? So one of the things that we talked about is access to vaccines. And so as we know, early on, everyone had to go online to make an appointment. And so how many of our parents can go online and make an appointment? I know my mom can't, right? And so having access to the vaccines is just one of the many barriers that we face.
I'm going to be real, like as a Latino man, Latino men have not been getting vaccinated like at all. We very low numbers. You know, LA County, they came out and there was like 39% of Latino men had gotten vaccinated compared to 46% of Latinas who have gotten vaccinated. And one of the things that we've seen that is actually very helpful is to promote free stuff. Men love free stuff. Everybody loves free stuff, but you know what? Hey, you give me a free ticket. You want to give me a free donut every day until the end of the year? All I gotta do is show my vaccine card. I'm gonna go get vaccinated. This one dude on Instagram was like, I'll go get vaccinated if you give me free beer. We sent them a link to Bud Light, who's doing a whole promotion. Yo, like it's one of those things that does help. Like you said, it is something that it helps people like to overcome these barriers, right? Like, all right, if it means free movie tickets or free beer, yeah, they're all in. So I definitely agree with that. Gracie, I want to know something that I want to ask a question in terms of getting mental health resources. I think it's something that with a lot of the things that are happening right now in terms of the COVID vaccine and what we have to go through with that, what would you say are some of the best resources that you've come across?
Okay, I'm unmuted. That's a really great question. I think that I personally have been looking a lot at apps, like mental health apps, and ones that like are staying with you and guide you. The best one I've found is called Woebot. It's WOEBOT, and it literally like tracks your well-being. It like links you to a lot of hotlines, whatever it may be that you're struggling with, and it also helps. For me, I've found really helpful to do progressive muscle relaxation. So like it guides you through those things. But another thing that I've seen is within the community and within like finding directories are really helpful, especially if you think that you won't be able to relate to a therapist or you won't be able to relate to a counselor. I think directories are really helpful in terms of just like finding the keywords that you're looking for, like either like your background or disability or a specific thing that that you want to focus on, and that can be really helpful. But I also wanted to share a quick number that I saw here. I came across a resource in terms of, hold on one second, when it comes to being able to access the vaccine if you have a disability. And hold on, okay, I found the hotline. If you're a person, you can call the hotline. It's 888-677-1199. And I just think it's really helpful because it connects you to services like independent living and like fundamental needs like food, housing, and transportation in case anyone might need it.
Grace, ¿ya nos estás dejando? Mute, you're on mute. You're muted. Otra vez.
Tengo que ir a mi otra chamba, so I do have to hop off, but I wanted to say que se queden aquí en confianza con los miembros de United We Dream and all of the folks that are watching today. I'm really honored and really grateful to have joined this discussion. And for if you haven't gotten your vaccine and you want to get a free donut with me and Norberto and Gracie and la doctora, let us know. We'll be here. All right. Bye, everyone.
Doctora, real quick, in your opinion, what are some of the best resources that right now that people can use to get their folks to go get the vaccine? Any resources that you've come across that are very helpful?
I do tend to reach for the CDC resources a lot because I do have a lot of, o tengo mucha confianza en el CDC. También el National Institutes of Health, y las personas pueden saber que el Dr. Fauci es parte o es líder del National Institute of Health o el Instituto Nacional de Salud. Pero también uno puede visitar a vacunas.gov para recibir mucho más información, recibir dónde puede ir para recibir las vacunas, si tiene que ir en un sábado porque estamos trabajando de lunes a viernes, cosas así, van a encontrar esa información en vacunas.gov.
Muy bien, muy bien. Yeah, and I think it's important that when it comes to a lot of these resources, there's a ton of resources out there. We got to be able to keep our ears on the ground and make sure that we amplify a lot of these resources. CDC, NIH, check out when it comes to a lot of these resources. Also, we're amplifying it on Voto Latino social media pages. You're always welcome to go on there and make sure that you share the information. Go on to United We Dreams social media pages. There's a lot of great information there, especially for those folks who are in mixed status families. And Gracie, your IG handle is incredible. You know, like how I want to know, like how do you continue to amplify this information, and how do you find this information?
Yeah, that's a I think that when it comes to looking for resources, we touched a little bit about like misinformation, and I want to go back to that real fast because I realized that when you do realize that maybe something like isn't fact checked, or maybe after a while, but you knew that you reposted it and you took it down, try like give a warning, or like after you have it on your story, like tell them like, I know I posted this, but like I'm also like saying that I know this part wasn't true or anything, and it's also really important to vet like the organization. Sometimes what I do is what they do is that you can get real creative on Canva and make it look real official, but you need to make sure that they have a website, an up and running website, or something that you know that they're affiliate with people that you trust, and that are viable. But to your question around like how I get informed, I found a lot of resources, particularly mostly on Instagram, and mostly from accounts that are posting like the importance, not just like not okay, they're posting the importance on collectivism and why we should care, not just for ourselves, not just saying like, oh, I'm healthy, I'm good, like I already feel great, you know, because it's not about you and like how much you're at risk, but rather how much you can put other people at risk, particularly like my abuelita. Like I don't want you to be out there like, you know, just think about other people, because I think at this point we've already gone through so much, and we already have we have a tool that we can implement and use. I think it's just like shifting from that mentality of like singularism and going into that where our actions are going to be impacting every other person. It's such a ripple effect. So that's something that you can take in mind. I recently I learned that it takes 2 weeks for you to be considered fully vaccinated, and until then, please continue to wear your masks, especially if you take public transportation, because a lot of essential workers are riding these public transportation services, and maybe they haven't been able to access the vaccine as you have. So please continue to wear your mask, be mindful of those around you. And yeah, I really hope that's something that you can tell your friends or tell people that you know, as you celebrate like getting vaccines, remind them that they need to wait at least 2 weeks.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. This is I think it's incredible to be able to have, you know, all these resources, and sometimes we got to be able to filter it out for our friends and family. We're involved in the fight, and I think it's up to us, right, to be able to share a lot of this information. Something that we want to make sure to amplify is you know, go there's information. You can find more information if you need a jumping off point. Please be sure to go to juntosipodemos.hhs.gov. Make sure to visit this website. It's a great jumping off point to be able to get a lot of the information. There's a lot of questions that we don't know, and it's okay to say that we don't know. But it's up to us to be able to inform ourselves and inform our families and inform our neighbors and our friends. So please, and like you said, Gracie, to your point, it's important to make sure that we verify our information. Understand that before we share anything, it's imperative that we know and understand where a lot of this information is coming from. Si es en español, si es en inglés, por favor, verifiquen en dónde están compartiendo. Antes de que compartan un enlace, un artículo, por favor, verifiquen en dónde viene esta información. Esto es lo importante, porque porque para muchos de nuestros familiares están cayendo en la información incorrecta, están compartiendo la información falsa, y tenemos que, es nuestra responsabilidad asegurar que nuestros padres estén consumiendo la información correcta. Y con eso, vamos a terminar nuestro capítulo de En Confianza. Doctora Katia, Gracie de United We Dream, thank you for being on here. Thank you for joining me in this very important conversation. Gracias por estar aquí. A nuestra audiencia que nos está viendo por medio de Instagram, muchas gracias por compartir estos momentos con nosotros. Es importante de que estemos hablando con nuestros familiares, estemos hablando con nuestros padres, con los tíos, con la abuela, el padrino, acerca de las vacunas. Es importante tener esas conversaciones, porque si tú no tienes estas conversaciones, nadie más lo va a tener. Entonces, por favor, please be able to have these conversations with your families, with your friends, and make sure that people in your life, get vaccinated. We want to go out and party. We want to go out and dance cumbia. We want to be able to go do everything we want in life. We want to get vaccinated. Doctora Katia, any last words?
Entonces, otra vez, juntos si se puede.hhs.gov es un lugar que sí es muy bueno para ir. La última cosa que quiero decirle es lo que Gracie acaba de decir. Cuando una persona joven decide vacunarse, la persona puede decir, ¿sabes qué? Si no me vacuno, ni problema, voy a estar bien. Y con mucha certeza es probablemente que va a estar bien. Pero si usted trae el virus en la casa y si usted infecta a sus papás, a sus abuelitos, a sus tíos, ellos pueden tener una consecuencia negativa. Y la otra cosita de los jóvenes, los jóvenes tienen un sentimiento que nunca nada va a pasar a ellos, ¿verdad? Entonces tienen este Superman complex. Pero la cosa es que sí tenemos hospitalizaciones de jóvenes y sí tenemos jóvenes que se han recuperado del COVID-19 y ahora padecen del long COVID o COVID a largo plazo. Entonces las vacunas parecen que reducen ese tipo de consecuencia. Entonces, por favor, vacúnense, por favor, infórmense, por favor, anden a sus doctores o a diferentes recursos para poder hablar con su familia, pero usted también, si no se ha vacunado, vacúnense.
Gracie, any last words?
Yes, I want to plug, you can text your zip code to 82286 if you want to find a vaccine near you. Y también el sitio de web era juntosipodemos.hss.gov. Entonces, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros, and thank you, Doctora Katia and Alberto, for your time and for leading this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Again, vaccines.gov, vacunas.gov, y juntosipodemos.hhs.gov. Make sure to get that information, get vaccinated, y'all. Ahí nos estamos viendo. Hasta luego.